The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. On today's show, we're going to show you how you can grow greens year-round. We're also going to get some great recipes from Chef Stephen Larson to show you what you can do with those greens once you have them. We're also here at Luther College, and we're going to talk to Maren Stummy-Deers about some of their sustainable food production practices. I hope you'll stay with us for Garden Connections. Decorah, Iowa is a community that really appreciates local food production, and Luther College is doing a great deal in the area of sustainable food production. They're educating their students, and they're also putting into practice what they're learning right in their very own cafeteria. We're going to meet Maren Stummy-Deers, and she's going to tell us more about these programs. We're going to catch up with her in the greenhouse. Maren Stummy-Deers is involved in a number of different sustainable food activities at Luther College, and she's going to share some of those with us today. Hi Maren, how are you?
Hi Stephanie, good. Thanks for coming to campus.
Oh, you bet. We're really enjoying our visit here today, and you are involved in so many things, but we're going to talk about just a few of those. But I want you to start us out by sustainability. A definition. You know, we hear about that a lot anytime we seem to be talking about natural resources.
Yeah.
But what does it mean in the world of food?
The world of food. I like to think of food that is green, affordable, accessible to all, and sustainably produced in a system that will allow enough for all forever.
Wow, that's a pretty ambitious goal.
Right, I know,
Very
but we work towards it every day.
Right.
We try to.
So enough food for all, forever. Give us a sense of some techniques that are used in food production that would be sustainable.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I think that we're seeing that small-scale, diverse agriculture really fits well into the local food economy. So, you know, making sure that farms it's great if they can have animals and vegetables in the same farm to allow for that organic matter to come back into the vegetable production.
Kind of nutrient cycling, all in the same place. Okay.
Composting. So I know here at Luther we compost and with stuff from the dining services facility, and then that gets put back on the gardens as a way to keep those nutrients on, on the college's property. Okay,
and you mentioned local. That's another thing. This whole kind of farm to table or farm to plate initiative that seems so hot right now, and it has a heavy local component. Tell us what Luther is doing in that field.
So there's different definitions of local, and I think it's really difficult to want people define it by mileage or by, say, oh, I know local when I feel it. And I think at Luther we say, within a day's drive, and if it's sustainably produced and tends to be healthier food. So we're really focusing on providing good food for our students that was produced in a way that supports our local economy. We are the biggest food purchaser, I think, in the region as an institution. And because we're in a very rural environment, and so we see it as our responsibility to really support the local economy and support those producers that are working so hard every day to bring good food to our table.
Okay, so as a food producer, you're going out and purchasing from individual farms in the region, is that right?
So we have, Sodexo provides our food services on campus. So we work very closely with Sodexo, and they are the ones who are buying the food then from the farmers. So we currently are buying all of our yogurt at Luther is local from a farm about 20 miles south of town.
Great.
And it's kind of funny, it's a good story. We used to buy about 700 pounds of yogurt a week, and then we switched over to the local stuff, and the students love it so much that we buy about 1,000 pounds a week.
Oh, you're kidding. So demand went up?
Demand went up.
Helped a local producer.
The producers are happy, and they were just getting up and running, and so we were able to be a good anchor client for them.
That's terrific. And so that's ending up on the plate. Is this just in the cafeteria, or are there other places on campus that also this local food is ending up on students' plates?
It's actually in all of our dining locations. We have centralized purchasing, and so when our purchasing office buys in yogurt or ground beef, we have all 100% grass-fed ground beef and burgers on campus as well. That gets distributed all over to all the dining locations. Great. So it's an experience that campus eaters get no matter where they go. They can't avoid the local food.
They can't avoid it. All right, well that's great. About how many students are you serving on any average given day?
I think they do about 4,000 meals a day in the cafeteria. And that varies a lot by time of year, of course, but that's pretty standard. for us.
And are you able, give us a sense, maybe percentage-wise, of how much you're able to bring in through local means to provide those 4,000 meals a day?
Yeah, so our local purchases are measured in terms of dollars. And so as of right now, we've spent almost $500,000 on local food this year. We're very proud of that. And our food budget's about $1.5 million every year. And so that's about 35% of our food budget.
And one of those local farms near the Decorah area are Mike and Katie Bollinger. They have River Root Farms, and we're going to head there next to find out how they grow microgreens. Let's take a look. Well, we're here at River Root Farm. We're with Mike and Katie Bollinger, and they're going to tell us about microgreens. Katie, thanks for letting us come out to your place.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, you do microgreens, but you also have quite a number of other plants. Tell us a little bit about your entire operation.
Sure. We're a small, diversified, certified organic farm. We only farm on about 4 acres. We use a system of movable, unheated high tunnels in order to kind of maximize our season extension on both ends. And we focus a lot of our production on off-season, so getting stuff earlier in the spring and getting stuff a lot later in the fall.
Do you do full year-round production?
You know, this past year we tried, but we do take January, February off. I think
It's cold around
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Hard to be outside.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk microgreens, and you are going to show us a little bit about how you get them started. Help us understand the difference between microgreens, or at what point do you define it as a microgreen and then it's too big to be considered a microgreen?
Okay, well, microgreens are exactly what they sound like. They're very small greens harvested very early in their lives. They're usually about 2.5 weeks old when we harvest them. We use a wide variety of crops in the brassica family. So we use a lot of broccoli, cabbage, kale, mustards, Asian greens. They're microgreens when they get their true leaf. So they get the codline leaves, and when they first get their true leaf, that's when we harvest them.
That's when you take a look at them. Okay, and
Yeah.
you do things that would eventually grow into regular plants. It's not just lettuce. So you mentioned broccoli and cabbage.
Right, yes. We do a mix of a lot of different brassica family crops, and then we also do peas and arugula.
All right, sounds great. Well, you've got a flat here that looks like you've started with some seed starting mix. And what's in this mix?
So this is a certified organic compost. It's made out of manure, peat, perlite, and a bunch of other amendments put in.
Okay, so it's got all the nutrients they need to get started.
Right, right. And then what we do is we just fill up a standard seeding tray like this, smooth it clean. Then we take our seed. This happens to be arugula seed here.
It's a lot of arugula seed.
Yeah, it is.
So this is a standard flat that you'd find in any nursery garden center.
It is, yep, just a standard flat.
Does it have holes in the bottom?
It does. It has little slits in the bottom. I can kind of show, but
Yep,
there you go. Yep. So then we just take a little seed, put it in our hand, and we've kind of got a feeling over this, but what you're trying to avoid is
practice.
yeah, what you're trying to avoid is getting a lot of clumps. You just want to evenly distribute it. And then I just kind of shake and evenly distribute. You can see the seed, it's a little bit orange or yellow on there, and I'm just trying to get an even distribution on here, and I kind of just measure it out like that.
So it's
That's
not
about
super thick.
right.
Certainly thicker than you would normally seed in the garden.
Yes, yes. But
not
you want to be able
crazy.
to cover the whole tray, but what you're trying to avoid is little clumped areas like that. And so the more you can kind of sprinkle and get a feeling for getting an even distribution. That's about it.
All right, great. And that's it? And
Yeah.
you water?
And so we water it in. This is a tray of arugula that we started just 3 days ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
So as you
Wow,
can
that's
see,
fast.
it's starting to germinate now.
And it's really relatively even.
Right, yeah. And
So
as
you don't cover these, is that right?
We do not cover them at all. No, we just mist them in with a mister nozzle on our hose for the first couple days to really get the seeds established down, so there's
Get
no
some good
seed
dirt
splash. So you're not waving like a big hose over them. to
Right, so
splash
it's not
the
a
seed.
shower head, it's
Right.
just a mist
Yep.
fixture to your hose. Okay.
Yep.
Keep them moist every day, keep them thoroughly moist, let them dry out a little
Keep them
bit.
thoroughly moist until they start to germinate, and then we water them twice a day to keep them evenly moist.
Okay. And you're in a protected environment here. You're in a what they call a high tunnel or hoop house or
Right.
whatever your name is
Yep.
for one of these. So they're protected from the wind and they get a little extra warmth. How early can you start germinating these in the season? Can you get out there in February and March?
Yeah, you can, definitely. Yep. These sorts of crops, the crops that we have chosen for our mix, are very cold hardy.
Okay.
So we're able to kind of do this all year round.
All right.
Yep.
Now you have several varieties that you grow here. How do you make sure that they all grow at the same rate so that they're ready for the store? Because you not only sell them direct to consumers, but you sell them in stores around the area.
Yeah. Well, we've really worked on our timing, and we've noticed that some crops take a few days shorter than others, so we just adjust the planting schedule that way. We also grow the different components of our mix separately and mix them after harvest so that we get a more even harvest and germination on the tray.
All right, sounds great. So we've given them a good start, and Mike is going to show us what they look like once they're at that kind of 2-week stage.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Katie.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, Katie showed us how you guys got these things started, and I see you've got just tray after tray after tray of these. About how many pounds of microgreens do you grow a year? Do you keep track of total pounds?
Not in a year. Typically what we do is we think about these as the amount of weight that we get per tray. We're getting about 8 ounces per tray, and we're seeding around 120 to 150 trays a week.
Wow.
Currently.
Okay.
So yeah, it's growing definitely as we kind of get the awareness out there of what it is that we're doing and what the mix
People
is.
taste them and they love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Boy, and so you have several different varieties. You can see the different shades of green. About how old are these now in this area?
Yeah, so these are arugula. These are about 10 days old. And these other ones, this
Beautiful
is
color.
yeah, these mustard and pak choi and cabbage and broccoli.
So
and
this is
Mizuna is
a
all
mustard?
about 2 weeks. This is called Ruby Streaks mustard is
Ruby
the
Streaks mustard.
variety.
Okay.
Yep.
And this one here, this is almost a lime green.
Yeah, this is Kinko pak choi. It goes by a lot of different names. There are things like Tokyo Bacana. I mean, what we've done is just experimented over time with the flavor of the things that we're growing, what the yield is, what the color is like to get kind of a really nice blend for the kind of salad mix style.
Right. Looks pretty.
Blend that we're doing. Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously with things like peas and arugula, it's got a very distinct flavor that people are familiar with.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So they get about, that's what, 2 inches tall?
Yeah, I
And
would say about 2 inches.
And I see what she was saying after these cotyledons, and then there is your first.
That first true leaf that
True
comes out,
leaf.
yep, is kind of what and it adds it adds more texture to it, as well as when we get into some of the things like the mustards, it does add a little bit more color as you kind of get into it.
Oh, sure. Yep, because the cotyledons are very
Or very-
burgundy.
Yep. And then as you kind of open them up and get into them, you can kind of see that there is like a lime green almost coming out of that true leaf
Of
in the
that
center.
true leaf.
Yeah.
Does that improve flavor too when those first true leaves come out? Or does the flavor come with the cotyledons as well?
It's actually we want it just the true leaf just peeking out a little bit, and then if you let them get too big when they're densely planted like this, then they can start to taste a little bit stemmy. So you don't want them to get overly big because then you lose some of the quality of the flavor.
Okay. Now sometimes when you start plants, they get leggy. I mean, they just shoot up right away and they're 3 or 4 inches tall before, before they've
Absolutely.
done much more than open up
Yep.
those cotyledons. How do you keep these guys? I mean, these guys look nice and compact and
Yep.
and full.
Well, and really it's the amount of light that we have at this time of year, as well as just the timing of when we're planting it and when we're harvesting it. This is all going to get cut for delivery tomorrow. So this is about as big as we get it, and absolutely, you're right. If we were to let this go through 2 or 3 or 4 days more, it would very much grab a lot of height. And then that's when I mentioned it being kind of stemmy flavor, is because
Right.
there's more stem growth
Right,
there.
right.
Yep.
All right, let's taste them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a couple different stages, actually 3 different stages here. This is
Right. So these
a
are
tray.
these are the trays that that we've just seeded over the weekend on Saturday.
And already you can see.
Yeah, you can already
they're
see
waking
them
up.
starting to come out. Yep, absolutely. And these we have to use in a slightly deeper tray than we did with the other microgreens, just because the root vigor with peas is so much greater.
Okay.
So we have to go with a little bit deeper soil. And then these are actually the only sets of greens that we cover with soil as well. So I just use like a scoop full of
that
soil in
potting
my
mix.
hand of the same potting mix and just cover it and kind of just spread it over. Doesn't need to completely cover everything,
Right.
but just a little bit. It helps hold that moisture in with the bigger seeds.
So you're using a greater depth here. Does that mean
Yep.
if someone did grow it in a shallower tray, would that stunt the top growth?
It would
Is that-
definitely stunt the growth, yeah.
Okay.
Or you would see it start to yellow a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. And then it wouldn't be as beautiful and lush green as these guys. So
Right.
this is kind of
Yeah. So then this is about a week old.
a weekend.
Yep,
Okay.
and then this is about 2 weeks, and then again these are going to be cut tomorrow. So we let them get a little bit bigger than we do the microgreens that we were looking at before, and when we
Yeah,
cut
and
these,
look at
we would
that.
do it just with the scissors too. So these are about
So you
6
can
inches
still see
tall.
those little peas there
Yep,
on the bottom.
Absolutely. And sometimes when we're harvesting them, if we get too close, then we'll end up kind of slicing some of those in half. But you can see that they get a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And this is going to look just like the end of snap
Yep,
peas
just
or
the
sugar
top of
peas when
a
they're growing in your
container,
garden.
yep. So when you cut these, how long can someone expect, say they snip them off and do you wash them right away? They stick them in the fridge. How long can they expect them to remain fresh?
Yeah, so we cut these and then we put them right through the wash and then spin them. And peas are again have the longest life or shelf life.
Okay.
I mean anywhere from 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks that these could sit in your
Wow.
fridge if you cut them and then put them right into your fridge.
But you definitely want to, you just talked about spinning them, so if people
Yeah.
have a salad spinner, they want to get that water off the
Yeah,
leaves.
absolutely. That's gonna help quite a bit, as well as any other than kind of debris that could come with cutting if you dip your scissors into the soil or something like that. Yep.
Okay.
Much cleaner.
Can you conceivably make an entire salad out of microgreens then, or are these considered more of a garnish?
No, I really think of them as a salad. I mean, in fact, when we grow salad mix as well, and we grow spinach and a lot of other greens, but typically when we're having a salad, we're using microgreens. I just, I like the freshness of them. I like the flavor combination that you get with them, and so absolutely, I mean, a lot of people kind of tend to think of them as a garnish, but in conversation, I definitely advocate for using them as a salad.
Great.
Yep.
Sounds delicious. Well, let's catch up with Katie and see the rest of your operation.
Sounds good.
So watering some of your other starts that you've got here.
Yep, just
Great.
getting them all watered in.
Well, it's all looking terrific. Thank you so much for letting us come and visit your farm.
Yeah, thanks for coming
It's been great.
out.
We've learned so much about microgreens.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Stay tuned for more Garden Connections. Well, that was a really fun visit. They've got a great place, and I can't wait to try some of those microgreens.
Oh, I know, they're so good.
They're great. Well, part of what you do here on campus also is to help teach students how to produce food. That's part of that whole food web. And we're here in one of the greenhouses that you guys use to start plants. Tell us a little bit about what some of the students will learn. And this is not necessarily a biology class. It's a learn how to grow your own food operation.
So we have a couple work study students every summer who help us grow food for the college. This year I'll have 6 part-time students. And we've had college gardens. Well, Luther used to grow a lot of its own food back in the early 1900s. But now we've gone back to that a little bit because students have really clamored for it. So we've had production gardens on campus since 2004.
Great. And are these sprinkled all over?
Yeah, so our college farm is about a mile away. And that's where our faculty staff community garden and our student production
Okay, so that's a little bit more serious production.
It is,
All right.
yeah.
And you've got some gardens right here on campus, though, that are kind of in a couple different spots, and you call them edible landscapes? Is that
Edible
right?
landscapes. So a couple of years ago, some students approached me and said, Marin, we need more vegetable production on Central Campus. I said, ooh, tomato plants everywhere, this could get crazy. Luther's a beautiful campus, and how would edible plants fit into that? But these students really pushed for it, and we put one garden in, and it was so popular that we did a second garden the next year.
Great.
Yeah, and these are spaces that students are free to come in and walk around and pick whatever they want to and just engage with food in a real way.
So they don't need permission to go in. They can just wander in any day. If there's a ripe tomato, they can pick it and taste it.
Exactly.
And really experience their food.
There are fences, but they're for the deer, not for the college students.
Not for the kids. not to keep the students out, just the beer.
Yeah,
Sounds
so it's
good.
really neat. And I think a lot of them really enjoy seeing food grow. They grew up in cities and haven't had that real hands-on food experience. So for them to see something growing in these gardens and then go in the cafeteria and see it on the salad bar is really a special experience for them.
And even to be able to just taste it straight off the plant. You use
Exactly.
sustainable methods, so there's no reason why they can't just dust it off and pick it up. And,
Yeah.
and we're here in the greenhouse. These are some of the things that you guys are starting already.
Yes.
So we've got some
some
lettuce
lettuce
here.
and some basil starts and eggplant and parsley.
And parsley.
So a lot of this
So they
stuff
could
will
just
end up
come
in our
along.
edible landscapes. Oh yes, it's so delicious. There's nothing like something fresh and green this time of the year.
And it smells so good too. It's been such a late spring. It's really nice. It smells so green and fresh.
It does. We do a lot of herbs. They use a lot of our herbs in dining
Tastes
services.
good too. Tastes good too. Great. What are some of the aha moments that students have, especially the ones that may not be as familiar with food production, maybe didn't have a garden when they were a kid growing up? What kinds of things are they telling you? Oh, Maren, I didn't know this.
I think a lot of our students are leaving Luther wanting to farm, actually, or at least have a garden of some sort, which is very interesting to me because we don't at all promote that through our academic programs. And you know, sustainability is all about community. And through our food production on campus, we really connect students with other members of the campus community in facilities that they might not have been able to interact with otherwise. And for them, that's really rich. Another great story, we grew some kale a couple years ago, a lot of kale. It was kind of a joke, actually. And one of the students kept on getting text messages from her friends to say, they're serving kale soup in Oneota Market today. It's so great, I'm eating it because you grew it, and I wouldn't have liked kale otherwise. And so I think it just creates
makes
these
it more personal.
connections. It does.
Yeah,
And we
that's
really
great.
want to promote healthy eating and relationships with food because I think it helps us all out in the long run to know where our food's coming from and
Absolutely.
to eat good food.
Absolutely. Now, the school calendar doesn't always mesh with the growing season here in our part of the world. Your work students that help you out with these gardens, do they stay throughout the summer and are you harvesting all year long? How do you handle storage, things like that?
It's tricky. So we take everything directly from the gardens to the cafeteria coolers, and so we don't really have to deal with storage a whole lot, fortunately. And we also have about a third of our population here in the summer, between summer programs and just students taking classes and stuff, and so we're able
So
to
there's still a good number
absorb
of
a lot
students
of
from-
food. You know, 2,500 people to feed on a regular basis.
Is
and then
still
you
a lot.
Put that in a third, we still can't produce enough to meet those needs.
Right.
And we're thinking about seasonal extension, like you saw at Mike and Katie's, the Four Season Tools. They provide these really great high tunnels, and we're looking into getting a high tunnel at Luther that can help us grow more spinach and mixed greens in the spring and in the fall.
Great. Keep
Yeah.
expanding that project.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, then your
Yeah.
cafeteria is responsible for taking all this wonderful food and turning it into recipes that the
Exactly.
students will eat. We've got a chef, Chef Stephen Larson from the Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota, who does that for us. And we're going to take a look at what he's done with Mike and Katie's microgreens.
Hi, I'm Chef Stephen Larson. Welcome to my kitchen at Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota. Today's recipe is going to deal with using microgreens. Now, microgreens are just the first seedlings of plants, mostly greens, lettuces, things like that. But then we also see peas and broccoli and other vegetables being used as microgreens as well. Now, it's important to distinguish that microgreens are not sprouts. Sprouts are different. Those are the sprouted seeds. You eat the whole thing, the stem, the root, everything, and in fact, even the seed on the end. Whereas microgreens are just the cotyledons and the first true leaves of the plant, and you clip them right off at the stem. So that's the part that you eat. Very delicious, beautiful, intense flavor, very nutritious, as all greens are, very good for you. So I have a variety of them here on the plate, and we're going to be using each one of these in a different method. Now, these are very delicate, so they don't lend well to cooking, so everything that I'm doing here is going to be in a cold preparation. So we have sweet pea shoots here, English pea shoots. We have a bull's blood beet. That's the greens here, obviously, with the nice red color. The baby arugula that I talked about just a second ago, and also a red mustard. Now, this is mustard the plant, not mustard the seed. So it has still a bit of that mustard flavor, but very delicious. So the different preparations I've done lend themselves very well to, say, a cocktail hors d'oeuvre party, and that's the way I've set things up here. The first dish I put together is using the pea shoots, and I've wrapped those with some freshly made guacamole and smoked turkey. Very delicious. You can just pick it right up and eat the whole thing. I've also made some cucumber tea sandwiches here, and for that I used the bull's blood beet, which has a sweetness and an earthiness that goes well with the cucumber. And then something that's all the rage these days is soup shooters, and this dish is a gazpacho shooter that I've put some of the baby arugula on top of, and when people are serving that, you just knock the whole thing back like you would a shot of something else. The last item that we have here is a pumpernickel canapé, and we put some smoked salmon, a little lemon parsley butter on there, and we've topped that with the red mustard greens. So there we have it, microgreens, because there's nothing better than eating fresh from your garden.
Well, those recipes looked great, Maren. I think we're going to have to get together a little cocktail party and try them out ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for sharing the information about Luther College's sustainable food initiatives. You guys are doing great work, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us here on Garden Connections. Wishing you green thumbs and tasty food. For Garden Connections, I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org or like us on Facebook.